There's a war that follows some veterans home. It's not the fight that you had overseas. It's not the one people thank you for at the airport. I'm talking about that war that's inside. The one that starts when the mission is over, but the questions begin. The war that begins when the institution you believed in, the one you served with loyalty, discipline, and sacrifice, turns out to be something very different than what you thought. When leaders fail, when truth gets buried, when loyalty is demanded but not returned, that's where moral injury often begins. And for a lot of veterans, the hardest part isn't combat, it's betrayal. Today we're going to talk about something that doesn't get discussed nearly enough, and that's institutional betrayal and moral injury. What is? What is it? Why it affects so many veterans, and most importantly, how to move forward without losing the values that made you serve in the first place. Because the goal isn't just survival, the goal is freedom. The day the war inside finally ends. Most people have heard of PTSD. PTSD is rooted in fear or a traumatic event. Moral injury is rooted in betrayal and violation of values. It happens when you witness or experience something that goes against the very code you were trained to believe in. You were told things like honor matters, integrity matters, loyalty matters, leadership matters. You were taught the military operates on a code, and for the most part, that code is real. Loyalty, duty, respect, honor, integrity, selfless service. Most of the men and women you served with lived it every day. And I'm sure you can think of a few. I know I certainly can. I can think of more than a few. But sometimes the institution fails the code. Sometimes leaders protect careers instead of soldiers. Sometimes truth becomes inconvenient. And when that happens, sometimes good people are sacrificed to protect reputations. And then something breaks. Not your discipline, not your strength, your belief. That's what breaks. And belief is powerful. When it shatters, it can leave a veteran asking questions like, was the sacrifice worth it? Did loyalty even matter? Did the system ever really care about the people who served it? Those questions can haunt someone long after the uniform is hung up. Institutional betrayal happens when an organization violates the trust of the people who actually serve it. And the military is built on trust. Trust in leadership, trust in the mission, trust in the system. Honorable things that we do, because that's what we're told to do and we believe in it. And you didn't just work there, you committed your life to it. You followed orders. You sacrificed time with your family. You endured deployments, danger, stress. For those of you in the reserves, that 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks out of the year, yeah, that was a lie, wasn't it? You did it because you believed in something larger than yourself. And when that belief is betrayed, it can feel like the ground beneath you just disappears. Some of us carry that for years. We feel anger, we feel resentment, and sometimes we feel shame. Sometimes we feel like everything we did was meaningless. And here's the dangerous part. If that moral injury goes unaddressed, it can shape our entire life after the service. Moral injury doesn't always look dramatic. It often shows up quietly. You might notice things like cynicism, distrust of authority, difficulty trusting organizations or leadership again, feeling disconnected from civilian life, closed off, maybe losing motivation, or feeling like your values don't really matter because they didn't matter to them. Sometimes veterans become emotionally guarded. We stop believing in institutions. We stop believing in systems. And sometimes we even stop believing in people. And the hardest part, many of us feel like we can't even talk about it because society expects us to say things like it was an honor to serve. And it was, but that doesn't mean everything about the experience was honorable. Those two truths can exist at the same time. You can be proud of your service and still be wounded by the betrayal of your leadership. When moral injury goes unresolved, it often turns into bitterness. Bitterness feels powerful at first. It makes you feel protected. You stop trusting anyone. You stop expecting integrity. You build walls. But over time, that bitterness doesn't protect you. It shrinks your life. It affects relationships. It affects your career. And it affects your peace of mind. And eventually, it becomes a second prison. The institution may have failed you once. Bitterness allows it to keep controlling your future. That's why healing from moral injury isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about reclaiming control of your life. Freedom from moral injury doesn't come from pretending betrayal never happened. It comes from understanding something powerful. The institution may have failed its code, but you didn't have to. Your service still matters. Your integrity still matters. Your discipline still matters. Your values were never owned by the military, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, Space Force. They belonged to you. They were yours. And they still are. And when a veteran realizes that, something shifts. The war inside begins to quiet, not because the past changed, but because your identity is no longer tied to the institution's failures. Your character was never theirs to control. They didn't build that. You came into it with that. That belongs to you. Moving forward from institutional betrayal takes intention. Institutional betrayal takes intention. It takes discipline. It takes courage. Here are the steps that help many veterans reclaim their lives. And these have worked for me. Number one, name the betrayal. The first step is honesty. You have to acknowledge what happened. If leaders failed you, say it. If the institution violated its own values, recognize it. You're not weak for acknowledging that reality. In fact, honesty is part of the warrior mindset. Ignoring the truth doesn't make you strong. Facing it does. But naming the betrayal is not about staying stuck in that anger. It's about gaining clarity. You can't heal from something you refuse to identify. Number two, separate the institution from your identity. Many veterans tie their identity completely to the service that they served in, the branch of service they served in. And when the institution fails, it can feel like your entire identity collapses. But here's the truth. Your values didn't come from the institution. The institution borrowed them from you. Honor, discipline, integrity, courage. Those existed in you long before the uniform, and they still exist after it. The betrayal belongs to the institution, not to your character. Once you separate those two things, the weight becomes bearable, starts to lift. Number three, refuse to become cynical. Cynicism is one of the most common responses to betrayal. It sounds like this. Everyone is corrupt. No one has integrity. All organizations are the same. But cynicism is a trap. It allows the failure of one system to poison your view of the entire world. And that's not truth. There are still honorable people. There are still organizations that operate with integrity. There are still leaders worth following. But you have to remain open enough to recognize them. Bitterness closes that door. Strength keeps it open. Number four, reclaim your code. The institution may have violated its values, but that doesn't mean that those values are worthless. The fact they matter even more now is apparent. Reclaim them. Define your own code. Ask yourself, what do I stand for? What are my non-negotiables? Where's that line in the sand that I won't go beyond? What kind of man or woman do I choose to be now? Your code doesn't have to come from an organization. It can come from your character. And when you live by that code consistently, something powerful happens. You rebuild self-trust. Number 5, build a new mission. One of our biggest challenges for veterans is the loss of that mission. The military gave you purpose, structure, direction, but when that ends, the vacuum can seem overwhelming. The answer isn't to chase the past, it's to build a new mission. And that new mission could involve mentoring young veterans, building a business, serving your community in one form or the other, raising your family with strength and discipline, helping others navigate the struggles that you face. Purpose doesn't disappear when you leave the military. It just changes shape. Number 6, and this was extremely important, find brotherhood again. Isolation makes moral injury worse. Many veterans wonder, after betrayal, can I trust again? So they stop trusting others. But healing often requires reconnecting with people who understand. No one understands better what a combat veteran has gone through than another combat veteran. No one understands better what a veteran has gone through than another veteran. Reach out to fellow veterans, mentors, support networks, communities built around shared values. You don't have to carry everything alone. Brotherhood isn't limited to the battlefield. It exists anywhere people live by a shared code. Look, institutional betrayal hurts because you believe in something. But believing in something bigger than yourself was never weakness, it was strength. The institution may have fallen short, but your service still had meaning. The discipline you developed still matters. The values you carried still matter. And the world still needs people who believe in those values and who live by them. Freedom from moral injury isn't about forgetting the past. It's about realizing your character survived it. The war inside ends when you reclaim ownership of your life, when your identity no longer depends on the institution, when your code becomes something you live by regardless of who else does. That's real freedom. If you're a veteran carrying the weight of institutional betrayal, know this: you're not alone, you're not broken, and your story didn't end when the uniform came off. The discipline that carried you through service can carry you through healing. The same strength that got you through combat can help you rebuild your life. The war inside can end, and when it does, you'll discover something powerful. The best parts of who you became in the service that were never owned by the institution. They were always yours, and they still are. There are veterans centers all over the country. And a lot of times it's just a bunch of guys in there coming in, sitting down, having a cup of coffee, and waiting for someone else to come in so they can strike up a conversation, so that they can talk about shared experiences once they are comfortable with that person that comes in. If you're going through this, don't do it alone. There are like-minded veterans out there who are seeking the same thing you are, but they just don't know how to go about it. One of those ways is to hook up with another veteran and say it out loud and let that healing start.